Kia ora. Welcome to Council's online webinar around our draft emissions reduction strategy. It's a pleasure to welcome you today. Firstly, I just want to introduce you to the panel we have with you. So I'm Chris Purvan. I am the GM of Strategy and Growth at Council. With me today, I have two councillors, and I will hand over to them to introduce themselves. Jocelyn, I might hand over to you first.
Kia ora everyone, I'm Jocelyn Privanoff, Waitanai Ward Councillor, and I'm Chair of the Climate and Environment Committee.
Fantastic, and Sophie.
Hey, kia ora everyone, ko Sophie tōkuingoa. I'm the Paikakiriki Raumati Ward Councillor, Chair of Strategy Ops and Finance, and also Deputy Chair of Climate and Environment, alongside Jocelyn at Kāpiti Coast District Council. Kia ora, back to you, Chris.
Thank you. Just to talk briefly around housekeeping, and then really our agenda for today is quite straightforward. We'll tell you a little bit about Council's climate action journey, then target into our draft emissions reduction strategy, and as we go, I'll be handing through to Jocelyn and Sophie, and then we'll have time for questions. So with that in mind, just a note, you will be aware that the session's been recorded, and we will make it available to the wider public, so they can hear about our discussion today. There will be a chance, as I said, to engage around Q&A. I know that there will be other topics that people are keen to raise concerns, issues or questions around, and we're happy to take those today, but we will be maintaining a focus on the emissions reduction strategy. We will be releasing Q&A material onto our FAQs page online. And just to note, I know that we'll be having a fantastic discussion today, and we're just wanting to ensure that everybody has a chance to participate in a safe and good way. So we'll be making sure that we keep comments in a good space. So if we go to our next slide. So you'll hear a little bit about from me, just to get us going, and then I will hand over to the councillors who I know you're really wanting or will want to hear from. So we've been on this journey for a while, and if you are aware of this, I'll just get you to bear with me, and I will step through it at a bit of a pace. We started this in 2010. When we started as a council to measure our corporate greenhouse gas emissions, and we were one of the first councils in the country to do that. In 2019, you'll be aware that we declared a climate emergency. In 2021, we adopted a climate emergency action framework. In 2022, a climate emergency action plan, and in 2023, our councillors, two of whom are with us today, set an aspirational goal to reduce our district-wide emissions to net zero by 2040, which is a focus in this emissions reduction strategy. In July this year, in 23, we started the process for this climate strategy, and it is one of our councillors' top 10 priorities. So the strategy development process itself, we're really trying to keep this simple. Our original aim had been to have a comprehensive strategy that would cover mitigation, which is really emissions reduction, adaptation, the idea that we're planning in the longer term for how we live with change, and recovery and resilience, being really about the fact that there are more extreme events happening and we're having to respond or be prepared to respond, and that will remain something that is a focus now and into the future. So we established a climate change and resilience community think tank. We had a strong interest from across the community to be part of that process, and they provided key input around really where we've got to today. So in 2023 started, there were councillors, community members, iwi representation, and I think importantly, representation from across the community. We have been on a journey though. And those of you who may be familiar with some of the conversation that we've had around some work we've been doing around coastal matters will know that there's a live discussion on some issues that we want to make sure that we save time and space and the right conversation for. So in December 24, our council agreed that now's the right time to actually separate the strategy into three parts. So emissions reduction, which we're talking about today, and then coming back on adaptation and recovery and resilience at the right time. So they're TBC, don't have a date. We will be back in touch though. So today our focus is going to be on the emissions reduction strategy. Our council approved or would like final approval by the end of September this year, and recently approved, coming out to talk to you about it. If we go to the next slide. And when I see this online, it looks slightly busy, but effectively, this is our plan on a page, or our strategy on a page. And this really aims to synthesize what is this strategy about. So what you're looking at is effectively where have we come from, or where are we now, the 2025 marker, just outlining what we've done, what we know, and where our district's emissions have come from. And if you've been on this journey today, you know that we have surveyed the community before. There's been strong support for having a focus on climate change and emissions reduction. 75% of our residents have indicated concern about climate change, and 63% have supported a district emissions target. And I think that's a really great basis and starting point for this conversation. In the middle of this document, there's really what I'm going to describe as the core focus for our way forward, and the where next for Kāpiti and our key pathways for change. So in here, there's the where we need to focus and the key shifts we think are required. You'll see 4 there, which we're really interested to hear feedback on as we push forward today. And lastly, on the very right-hand side, out to 2040 and beyond, where we want to be and what success will look like. And so on this A3, but also in the document, we actually describe what we believe our shift to the future looks like, and we're interested to hear from people about that. Importantly, I just want to note that at the top of this page, there's reference to Vision Kāpiti. We have, in addition to surveying the community on Vision Kāpiti itself, on climate change itself, gone back out and asked everybody what's most important. So wanted to make sure that we reflected back to you that we believe you've told us you want to see a low carbon Kāpiti delivered in a way that protects what we value and that it maximises benefit for all. That links back to place, people and partnership, which is really the umbrella outcomes that Council has adopted to make sure that we are developing and growing well as a district. I will keep stepping through and hand over to Sophie. So Sophie, where are we now?
Yeah, cool. Thanks so much, Chris. So yeah, where are we now? 2025. People and businesses right across Kāpiti are already taking action to reduce their emissions by shifting to low emissions transport options, electrifying their homes and businesses, and minimising waste. And some of you may be aware of or support businesses taking such steps. If we look at Kāpiti's district emissions, so across our whole rohe, emissions have reduced 6% since the first regional emissions inventory was undertaken, which was in 2018-2019. And this reduction has occurred even as the population has increased, which is an interesting point to note. Examples of local groups and businesses that are taking action and seizing the benefits of decarbonisation include Energise Ōtaki. Their work to provide clean, accessible energy that's good for the planet and community is something that Council loves, and I know that many in the community really get behind and support as well. They're helping people to upgrade their homes to be warmer, healthier, and more energy efficient. And then you've also got local businesses, and many of whom are part of Pākehī Toitu or Kāpiti, our sustainable business network here on the coast. Businesses such as Mills Albert, Dark Horse Coffee, and they're already reaping the benefits of sustainable practices and low carbon technology through the way they do business. And as Chris mentioned, the community is concerned about climate change and supports action and supports kind of council's general pathway towards an ambitious target for reduction of emissions. And we're really keen to kind of sense check, review whether we've got things right through this strategy as a means of doing that. And then that'll obviously flow into implementation, which will be another feature of this conversation, but also future conversations. A survey in 2022 that council undertook informally found that, as to reiterate, 75% of respondents are concerned or very concerned about climate change in Kāpiti. 63% of respondents supported council setting a district-wide emissions reduction target, which we've done, of 2040, and of net zero by 2040, and 58% of respondents are prepared to take action to reduce their emissions personally, and a further 27% are prepared to take action depending on the cost and benefits. Now, just to really quickly, before I pass back over to Chris, to break down Kāpiti's emissions, they're dominated by a couple of key sectors. Number one being transport. 57% of Kāpiti's emissions come from transport, as you can see on the little pie chart on the screen at the minute. 17% from energy and buildings, and 9% from waste. And collectively, those three sectors make up 83% of our emissions. So we've got some challenges to overcome, but we're in a really good place to be leading change and to be making that change happen. So yeah, Chris, back to you to talk through purpose and pathways.
Thanks, Sophie. Right, so this is, as I mentioned earlier, this is the heart, the core of our strategy. I think really it's about where we focus our effort to drive change. And I think the things that I really wanted to highlight to you are some of the benefits that we think are coming through. So part of this is about saving money on power and fuel. And that's through greater adoption of energy efficiency and zero emission technology, greater energy security and resilience, and that's going to be through increased use of local renewable energy and storage systems, improved health from better insulated, warmer and drier homes, and increased levels of everyday cycling and walking, and enhanced community connectedness through smarter urban planning that creates vibrant, compact and less vehicle-dependent centres, and of course, a more resilient, resource-efficient and future-proofed local economy. I think one of the things that I wanted to say to everybody is this strategy sits alongside several other strategies that council is working on concurrently. And our focus is about ensuring that we focus on benefits and that we are able to balance the way we move forward as a district. And so being able to talk about those broader benefits is very useful. I'm not going to read all the detail that we've set out here about the four sort of key areas, because I know you can see them and you will have read through our documents. Effectively, I think the thing that I want to highlight is Sophie had mentioned transport as a key driver of our emissions, and that's obviously at the top. And so some of the things you can see here as we step through down the four areas is the key shifts we think we could make, including, and I'll just read a couple, the increased use of public transport, improving building performance, diverting organic waste from landfill, and improving landfill gas capture, and lastly, increasing forestry in a way that enhances the environment. So those are some of the things that we've called out, and again, I'm looking forward to hearing from you shortly. But before we go there, Jocelyn, I'll hand over to you so you can chat to us about where we want to be by 2040.
Yes, so thank you, Chris. And so, you've heard that we've made great inroads into reducing our emissions figures, and also you you must be aware that in terms of what you're doing in everyday life. So Chris has mentioned a couple of things that that we can make changes on. And I suppose this draft strategy is about creating a better Kāpiti, which is more prosperous, healthy and sustainable. So transport, for example, this is about looking at the options we get around. It means more mobility and community connection. Public transport by bus and train is more reliable, affordable and frequently used. Those who want to can safely walk and cycle around the district, meaning less congestion on other road with other road users. And many can still travel by car, but majority electric and remaining far more fuel efficient. And freight increasingly uses cleaner technology and alternative fuels to reduce costs. And then also, if we look at our buildings and energy, these buildings are warm, dry and energy efficient across Kāpiti. The uptake of affordable rooftop solar and community solar is helping to reduce energy bills and increase energy security. In our industry, a shift towards sustainable consumption leads to more innovation and support for local businesses. Energy efficiency improves not only to reduce emissions, but to help improve businesses' bottom line. Chris mentioned waste. Households and businesses produce significantly less waste and are smarter about reusing, repairing and recycling what we have. This includes recovering resources such as construction material, food, scraps and green waste. Also land use. Urban areas become denser, creating vibrant, compact, better connected communities. Total green space and forestry coverage is increasing in line with community values. Matarangi Māori has helped shape our actions to ensure a holistic, integrated approach reflecting Te Ao Māori principles. These benefits of making these changes are expected to be significant. As according to the Climate Change Commission, the health benefits of decarbonising transport and improving air quality could be worth $2.1 billion per year by 2040 nationally. There will be further health benefits from upgrading homes to make them warm and drier. Financially speaking, analysis by Rewiring Aotearoa has calculated that rapidly electrifying homes, vehicles and businesses could lead to total savings of $10.7 billion a year by 2040 nationally. This is a more prosperous, healthy future we want in Kāpiti, and we'd like you to be part of that. Thank you. So now I'll pass back to Chris, who will talk about the principles that guide these actions and on how we'll get there. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Jocelyn. So also wanting feedback on the principles that we've set out in the draft strategy. Really, the principles we can kind of think of as the guide or guardrails for our actions and decisions. So we've set out several, and I'll just lean into a couple there. One being ensure a just transition, and so that's really acknowledging that we know that affordability is a factor in people or some people being able to participate across a wide spectrum of things that we think could be an opportunity to drive change to get down to that aspirational target. Focusing on the greatest gross emission reduction opportunities. So there's a few there sprinkled there. So we want to hear from you. And I am about to hand over to Sophie, where she'll talk about partnerships. I just want to reiterate, though, this is not about council. This is about community. And actually, it's about us focusing together to achieve an aspirational target. So we already have a lot of work underway at council, absolutely focused on it, but we know it's about how we work together. So I'm going to hand over to Sophie so she can chat to us about, hey, what about partnership?
Epic. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, so to get to where we want to be, and as Jocelyn kind of painted that vision for 2040, that obviously council has a real leadership role in helping to actualize and realize, but also we want to do this in collaboration with you all. We're committed to leading where we can, but also to working together because everyone has a role to play to create that prosperous, healthy, low carbon Kāpiti that Jocelyn kind of ran us through and described. And that's the kind of Kāpiti that I want to yeah, I really want to be passing on to future generations. So it's quite an energizing and exciting prospect, I think, for us. So the draft strategy identifies everyone from mana whenua to community groups and businesses to central government that council will need to work with to achieve our aspirational net zero goal for the district. And it also sets out the roles that these partners and stakeholders can play and also what they can expect from council so that we can also be accountable to all of you and also to the other stakeholders that we're working collectively with in achieving this vision for net zero by 2040. So we really want to hear what you think. We are super keen to hear your thoughts about any aspect of the draft strategy. In particular, we would love to know what you think about our proposed focus on reducing emissions in ways that will maximise the benefits. So kind of that return on investment piece, the sectors and pathways that we've chosen to focus on, the principles that we've proposed, and also the partners and partnerships that we have described. And I think, Jocelyn, I'll pass to you.
Yes, so thank you. So now we're going to talk about how you can actually have your say. I think there's another slide that's coming up, which actually shows you online what we have. So basically, there are a number of ways that you can do this. So first of all, you can go to our online form, which is in the Have Your Say page, which is on the very front page of the Kāpiti Coast District Council website. And in there, there's a submission form where you can actually drop that into our libraries and our service centres. Or you can email your submission to Have Your Say, which is on this page here. And then we also have a number of drop-in sessions where you can, get more clarity, ask some questions, and also provide your submissions as well. So those were, I think that page has just disappeared. So we have one in each of we have one in Paikokariki, Waikanai, Otaki, Paeparamu, Raumati, and another one actually in Paeparamu as well. So that's over the next 11 days or so. And I think staff will be attending these as well as elected members, or I'm hoping to go to some of these as well. So hopefully this gives you enough opportunities to have your say. If you go to the website and to the online page, you'll see that there's an absolute raft of information there. There's the actual draft strategy. There's a lot of other information there as well, which you can really look at, dig into, and hopefully decide what you'd like to say about this. So thank you. So now I think we've finished our presentation, so I'll just open that up for questions.
Great. And just to really get the ball rolling, might note that on the bottom of your screen there is a Q&A that you can click into, and you are able to type a question in if you would like to. There's also a chat if that is not working for you and you want to raise a question now. Whilst we just give people a chance to do that, I did want to note that there are some key FAQs already up on our site that if you have any questions about things like what are emissions or gross emissions, what do we mean by net zero, how can I help actually, or get in touch with a business or someone else who is already engaged and has things underway. You may even have a question about why do we need an emissions reduction strategy. So have some information on that. Why 2040? How this might relate to other work that's happening regionally or nationally. How are we going to measure emissions? So we've got some information on that. How to keep involved and aware of what's happening if that's where you're at on this. Our position on climate change, what I have mentioned, but it has a bit more detail. The budget. So the budget that is going to be spent on this, and I might just touch on this now, which is technically speaking, we have an assigned budget to this strategy. In terms of any action plans that we do look to create, they would go through our usual council process, and that involves our long-term plan, so that you and others in the community get a chance to have their say on what's most important. If you want more information, you can contact our Have Your Say at kapiticoast.gov.nz. So I'll wrap up and just see if we have had any questions come through. I will acknowledge that it can take time to pop your question in, and fully aware of that. So if you aren't able to put your question forward but do have one, please send it through to us. We will respond and we will put those up onto our site. I will just pause for a second and have a quick check to see if we've had any specific questions come through. Oh, we do have a question, and I'll say, hi, Julian. I'll just read it out. Julian said to us, hi, it's great that this is a community-oriented strategy, but I'd like to know more about what council is doing and going to do to reduce its own emissions and to help limit emissions through planning controls. For example, what is council doing to make its own operations more energy efficient, in particular its infrastructure? Right, so that's quite a specific question there, Julian. I think what I might say, just to kick us off, is to say that council has a variety of work underway through, I mentioned earlier, a climate action framework. And across the organisation, we have initiatives underway, and we report on our emissions. We're required to legally report on our emissions and the actions that we have underway to reduce those. In terms of infrastructure specifically, it'd be good to clarify that, because if you're interested in roading or our water infrastructure, our pools, our libraries, that would be good to know. But we can provide more specific information, and actually I might see if one of the team could put a little link in just to showcase back to what we have underway already. I think some of the other things that we are thinking about are our use of solar into the future. However, we haven't yet taken any full proposal to council for consideration. Jocelyn or Sophie, did you want to add anything more to that?
Yeah, I'm happy to add something, if that's okay, Jocelyn, and then you can pop some comments through as well. Julian, I've just responded by way of a link also to council's website with some more information about our organisational emissions, but maybe just to highlight the fact that council's been measuring its organisational emissions since 2010 through the Toitu EnviroCare program, and have seen a 72% reduction since 2010 in our kind of in-house emissions. Some of those actions that have contributed to that reduction include converting our district streetlights to LED, improving the efficiency of our vehicle fleet and switching a whole bunch to EVs, and upgrading our wastewater treatment plant as well. And as Chris mentioned, we have a statutory obligation, but also just a responsibility through identifying climate action as a priority that does filter through the organisation. So we are constantly looking for other opportunities, whether it be through the local government financing authority, our GFA, to potentially, at their kind of green loan scheme, which could enable more projects internally, or just simply like on the lookout constantly for opportunities. And yeah, be assured that that's something that the team has their eyes right across. And yeah, also hear your point about kind of needing council to take leadership, but also, yeah, the point that you make around reducing emissions through planning, or limiting emissions through planning controls. And that will also be coming through as quite a flavour in the next stage of Vision Kāpiti. So Chris mentioned briefly the vision out to 2060 that we've been co-creating with community over the last kind of year or more. And the next phase of that is looking at master planning in terms of, kind of urban development and how our urban form could function to enable both outcomes for people and also the planet at the same time. So that's something that we're wanting to do strategically and through that master planning approach, which will then feed into other changes down the track. That's our chance to kind of lift up and look at the urban form in Kāpiti.
I might just add to that, Sophie, to say, and that's a great summary of some of the actions we have underway. But I think most importantly, when we look at our districts, the key driver of emissions reduction is transport. So I don't want to lose sight of the fact that Jocelyn and Sophie and our other councillors have been advocating strongly on behalf of our community to get access to better public transport for this district and to look at alternative opportunities and modes to really be able to get around. And outside of something that's maybe specifically about emissions reductions, we obviously have a really strong focus on tracks and trails and other things that encourage people and also provide an opportunity to get around. So don't want to lose sight of that. And I guess back to the conversation about partnership, definitely taking a lead role, but absolutely can't do it by ourselves. So wanting to make sure that we have the support of key partners in the community so we can all do our part, really. Okay, I'll just lean into another question from an anonymous attendee. Are there any incentives being proposed to encourage individual installation of solar panels? What would also be useful as a council being able to provide information on what solar systems are available that suit properties in the Kāpiti Coast? More commercially independent information might make it easier to take up greener options. Thanks. I might just say from a council operations perspective that we meet regularly with our counterparts, so the exec team of Electra and other energy providers. And that's something that we have been having discussions around solar panels, the opportunity for incentives. And I just will note that many people don't realise, but our district plan actually currently has requirements for solar panels to be used in parts of the community. Unfortunately, that's not as widely utilised as it could be, and cost is a factor. So definitely something that we are looking into. And we'll take your point around more commercially independent information being available and see what we can do about that. Again, I might offer to Jocelyn and Sophie if you want to add anything to that point.
I'll just make the comment. I would like to see more solar usage occur both within council buildings and in our communities, but I know that cost is often a factor that doesn't allow that to occur as quickly and as widespread as we would like. And I think also to even wind generation as well is another thing to look at. So I think it's it's a question that gets raised quite a lot, and it's something that given time, hopefully we can actually answer some of those questions.
Yeah, just to briefly add as well, Chris mentioned some studies undertaken or some kind of looking out at the potential value economically of solar done by Rewiring Aotearoa, and they've done a whole heap of really awesome work on the return that you can get economically, but also in terms of efficiency of heating your home and the health benefits that come from that. There is kind of a side arm being started called Rewiring Kāpiti, which is I think at the moment it's a few people, but they're connected with this wider kind of movement of Rewiring Aotearoa, whose main whose main work is thinking about how we decarbonise electricity, energy generation, and how we get that to homes and to businesses and through solar panels on rooftops. And so, if you're interested in this, I would definitely recommend following along with the Rewiring Aotearoa crew. And there's a local Kāpiti kind of little team being stood up of volunteers. So that might also be a good place to source information. And I think they're planning on trying to disseminate some of that across the district as well. So Totally hear your point around council getting involved in it, though. I think that's a really great suggestion.
So if I
Yeah,
can so if I can also add to that, just backtracking too, using solar and other forms of energy, I think, obviously that's something that is really important to look at. But I think we need to also look at the energy efficiency in our homes and our buildings, because if they're actually lower, then you don't need so much solar. And I think council can play a really important part in that. And I think council does support some initiatives along those lines, such as Energise Aotaki. And there are other ones out there as well. So I think it's the whole, looking at things holistically as well.
Yeah, and I hear you leaning into the healthy homes initiatives that are widely operating in our community to that end. Also, just wanted to plug a gap for the private sector. We have companies in Kāpiti and Paraparaumu who are actually building modular, energy efficient homes. It's something like 95% self-sufficient. From what I'll say as a network. If you want more information, definitely shoot that out to people. We'll put in our FAQs, but just want to highlight some amazing things that are happening in our district already and that are actually available nationally. So for Kāpiti and nationally, so that's quite exciting. I do see one more question here. We did get an earlier question, which was around our tree policy, and it's great to say that there's obviously interest in that, an important topic. We weren't going to respond to that today just because whilst it is linked to our emissions reduction strategy, we're actually going to have a specific piece of work coming out on our tree policy and looking to update that. So what we'll look to do is come back to you specifically with a bit of a response, and we'll also add that to our FAQ. So just didn't want to leave that one unanswered. And I'm just going back to our questions because I do realise that we are coming to the midpoint of our time. Nothing more I can see. So maybe we might just do a bit of a closing for today's session. And in the interim, if anything else pops up, we will capture it. If you felt like this was just too fast to put your question in, or you had any issues, don't worry. You can email us. We will come back to you. We will put your question in the FAQ up online, so your thoughts won't be lost. I think earlier we'd said to you, we're really interested in feedback, so please do put your feedback through to have your say, and or pop into one of our sessions that Jocelyn had noted earlier, because we really want to hear from people, really looking forward to being able to incorporate anything we've missed or maybe we've got wrong. So really open to that feedback. So Jocelyn, I might hand over to you just for a final word, and then to Sophie.
Thank you, Chris. So I think this has been quite a long time coming, and as Chris mentioned earlier on, this is part of a section on our climate work that we are wanting to do. So this draft strategy is actually a high-level strategy. The action plans the actions from this will come next year, and so it's really important to get the structure right, the content right, and so we really encourage you to have your say in, I suppose, in the number of ways that we've given you that opportunity. So thank you. I'll pass over to Sophie now.
I feel like you've both said it all, but yeah, I agree with Jocelyn that definitely great to get all the principles and the direction all set, which is what we're trying to do with this strategy, so that we're all on the same page, we're in the same waka, we're swimming we're paddling in the same direction, should I say, to follow that metaphor. And then the implementation and the kind of budgetary commitments will come through long-term plans, which will be subsequent to the strategy being finalised. And so yeah, it feels really exciting to have or to be at this point now where we're kind of testing with you where we've got to with the strategic direction, and where we also have a solid commitment from those around the council table at the moment to follow that direction of being really ambitious and aspirational in our approach to reducing emissions, and to not just sit back and kind of let business as usual just spiral, but to instead kind of stop and think about how we can do things differently, for the sake of, you know, our community's health and also the health of Papatūānuku, the health of the planet as well. So we really want to work with you on this, and we're excited for the conversation through this engagement, and then to implement this strategy together. So Chris, over to you.
Yes, so if I could just actually say something else as well. So you see that this strategy, this is actually the mitigation part of our strategy, and then there's going to be a little bit more, but we're very conscious that there are a lot of other connections in terms of mitigation, climate, and environment. And so there's an environment strategy that's going to be rolled out soon as well. And so we want to look at all these in a holistic way, and so they all connect. We're not actually creating, I suppose, silos so that they don't work together. And I suppose, as we all know, when things work together really well, these are really good synergistic positive effect. Chris.
Thank you, Jocelyn and Sophie. I think just as a final word, thank you for attending today. We look forward to feedback that you're able to put forward or you want to put forward, and hopefully you've seen today with our councillors present. I think there's real passion and dedication to listening to our community, to picking up on the things that are most important, and I just want to reiterate that your feedback does count. We will be listening very intently to what you put forward. Our councillor, a full suite of councillors will receive your feedback, and as a result of that, you can expect that we will and are open to looking to incorporate changes before we land a final position. So thanks again. You can touch base with us. Any queries or feedback, please come back to us. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Looking forward to hearing your feedback.
Thanks, ka kite.
Ka kite.